Welcome to the MFR Coaches podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Attention MFR therapists. Are you ready to fill up your practice and take it to the next level? I've got just the thing for you. Save the date and join me from July 22nd through the 26th for the Get Fully Booked Coachathon, a 5-day challenge to fully book your MFR practice. Each day will tackle a crucial aspect of your business, from setting rates to handling client objections. You'll walk away with actionable strategies you can implement immediately. This isn't your average training. It's a hands-on coaching experience where you'll see real results, both personally and professionally. No fluff, just the proven things that work to get you fully booked. So if you're serious about growing your MFR practice and you want to help make MFR mainstream, this coachathon is for you. Save the date, July 22nd to the 26th, and let's get your MFR practice fully booked together. Get on my email list, www.themfrcoach.com/join. We will be releasing more details in the near future, and I'll see you there. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the MFR Coaches podcast. I'm your host, Heather Hommel, the MFR coach. I help you start your business and get fully booked, or take the business that you have and make it even better so you never burn out or under-earn, and do myofascial release for as long as possible, so that we can make MFR mainstream together. Today, I am joined by some special guests, study group leaders who are all seasoned therapists who have been approved through the John Barnes seminars to create and host study groups for fellow MFR therapists. So we're just going to go around and introduce everybody. Let's start with Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Lind. I'm in Tampa, Florida, and I am the owner of New Life Myofascial Release in Tampa and also in Bradenton, Florida.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ponzi. I'm the owner of Essence Bodywork in Westerville, Ohio.
Hi, I'm Corey Cosgrove. I'm on the west side of Michigan in Holland, and I have a clinic called the Healing Toadstool.
Hello, I'm Magdalena, and I have a clinic in Whistler, British Columbia, Canada, and I'm the Vancouver Whistler study group area leader.
Hi, I'm Maria Giannetti. My business is MG Bodyworks in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and I am the Northeast Pennsylvania study group leader.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today. I think it's so fun to be able to have these conversations and to talk to therapists from all over the country. And in Canada, we've got an international therapist with us too. So great. So great. MFR stretches around the world.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why study groups are important and maybe why you've been called to, volunteer your time and run a group like this. Who would like to start?
So I think study groups are important to build your local community and network, especially when you're getting started to build your skills. I wish there had been study groups around when I first started this work. I wish I'd known maybe one or two other people in my area doing this work. I couldn't find them. I drove an hour and a half to get treatment when I first started. And that was what drove me to build this group. I'm the Central Ohio study group leader. Ohio has 4 different study groups, and people can go to any of them. But I was just really driven to build this community to help other people because I didn't have that when I was starting out.
Yeah, very good. Who else wants to share?
I think I started the study group in Tampa. Some of the reasons Kristen said, of course, building community and building skills. It helps us stay connected. We're really fortunate here in Florida to have such a big group of therapists, and it kind of helps us all stay in touch. But also when we practice the John Barnes method, it's taught to be used purely as John Barnes, right? So it's not to be mixed with other things. That's how it's taught. And I think a lot of people take one or two courses and then they kind of try to mix it in with what they're already doing, which again, MFR in any form, great. I'm glad people are doing it. But to really understand the power of this work and how effective it is, you have to learn the skills to practice it purely and by itself and understand that it isn't just techniques. It's about intuition. It's about being grounded, all of those things that we learn in MFR. So it's really important to me as a study group leader to make sure that I'm kind of passing on John's teaching and John's knowledge and wisdom in practicing this work by itself and not trying to, just use it as a tool in your toolbox, but as the whole toolbox.
I love that, Jen. I mean, to piggyback off of the build community and stay connected, also to keep momentum. So for myself, I attend as many seminars as possible. And I feel it's just so nice to come home and share that with my community. Not every therapist, even though they have taken MFR1, can travel. And I think it's just so special to be able to share what we've learned and keep that momentum and that inspiration. And us therapists also get our hands on ourselves and get treated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So good. I think too, this idea of keeping our skill set true to the way it is intended, which is doing John Barnes' myofascial release, not doing Heather Hommel's myofascial release, even though like the way I treat is going to be different than how Corey treats, in the sense that like we're just different human beings, but we're doing the same thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And really understanding that those differences are okay, but where you're like inventing your own Wile E. Coyote ways of doing things is maybe not the way it's been intended. And also, I think the intention behind all of John's work is for it to never be a tool in the toolbox. What happens to tools in the toolbox? They get dusty, right? They get forgotten about if they're not the thing that you're using. So I think it's really important to say those words and to just say that out loud. I think that's really good. Okay, let's see. How often do you think therapists should attend a study group? And how often do you guys hold these study groups? Is there any kind of required cadence or what's typically done?
I would say it's often as often as possible. And, going to different study groups is also a really great idea. I know that for me, the closest study group, aside from mine, is like 4 hours away. So, there are people that are coming over a couple hours away to the study groups. And it's not just for people who are newer therapists, but it's a really great way for even seasoned therapists to share. And they also get work as well. I think a lot of it is feedback from their own bodies as they're receiving the work. And it's the more you can get it, the more you can attend, the better it is.
Well, I was going to add into the collectivism aspect of it. As you were saying, the more people kind of veer off into their own facets of the techniques, we forget the core principles of MFR. And I don't want to say it's a trend, but as the word is getting out with fascia and the effects of the human body with fascia, people are just kind of going on their own and doing willy-nilly things without even being trained. So I try to hold them every quarter, so every 3 months. And we welcome everybody, that meet the requirements. And we do get quite a few repeats. But the first focus that I have is to ensure that everybody understands that, we are the storytellers now. We're stepping into MFR because the traditional mindset or the traditional healthcare just isn't working. So there's a reason why we grew up without technology and cell phones, and we're diving more into our intuitive voices, so we can bring forth John's work. And the only way we can continue doing that is by repetition.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a special cadence to their study group meetings, or does everybody meet quarterly? How do you guys do it?
I'm quarterly in Florida. I'd love to do one every month if I could. I think there's always a lot of logistics with people too, because we have so many people here that there usually aren't people coming from really far away because, we have enough study groups in Florida. We're used to anyway, but every 3 months is usually good. But, people have kids and people are working and I give a month's notice for my study group because I do get a lot of LMTs and they all work Saturdays. So I like to give them the time because I always do it on a Saturday. So I like to give them the month. But quarterly seems to be about the right amount of time for people to not feel, overworked with it or kind of keeping the rhythm and it connects. I have a different group of people every time. I get some good
cool.
repeaters, but we get a lot. I mean, my groups are usually 12 to 16 people. So we get a lot of different people kind of in and out, which is cool too, depending on the time of year and what's good for them.
Great.
Yeah, mine is every 2 to 3 months. I used to do them monthly before COVID, and that just got too overwhelming. So I kind of dropped it back, and this feels like a pretty comfortable pace. I have a lot of the same people come every time just because we want to get together, and they're some of my favorite people.
Mm-hmm. Do you do the study groups from the other areas in your state also come to your as a study groups? I know, Kristen, that happens for Ohio, right? You guys kind of go to each other's.
Occasionally, yeah. I mean, not all the time, but every now and then.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, we swap in Florida a lot. We hop around where we can.
Yeah, in my area, it's the same. I feel over the past few years, study groups in my area have decreased, which is what inspired me to start a study group. But I would travel over to Victoria, which is about a 4-hour drive for me, and a ferry. And then I did plan to do some study groups in Seattle, which again, it's like a 5-hour drive, which was the closest to me. So we do switch it up, and I even invite people up from Portland. So
Fun.
Everybody's always welcome. Yeah.
Love it.
Michigan's been quite slow when it comes to study groups for, I would say, maybe 2 or 3 years. So I've been kind of poking at Janine a little bit on becoming one of their study group leaders.
Bringing it to the state. That's good.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this has to come from us as leaders, like initiating like, hey, I want to do this versus waiting for someone to tell us to do it because, well, we might just be waiting. It's like decide you want to do it and then reach out and meet the qualifications, which is awesome. Okay. That kind of leads me into this question of why did you want to be a study group leader? Because it's usually a volunteer position. It takes your time. They're held on the weekends a lot of the time. You got to organize and manage people. Like, what was the drive behind it outside of just loving MFR? What do you guys get out of it?
Well, loving MFR is a big component of it. And it kind of circles me back to build the community and stay in the know of who took the courses and who's practicing and receiving the treatment. So yeah, being a safe space and a place where people can continue to practice.
Love it.
For me, I there was no mentor in my area, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to just have that available for other therapists who are starting out? And once I started the study groups, there were people that, had taken 1 or 2 courses that I hadn't known about in the area. So it's really nice, and they're all connecting. And now it's great because they can do trades with each other and stuff like that. And it is building a community now.
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. I feel like I wanted it to happen, so I just made it happen. I'm not the most experienced therapist in my area, and that's okay. But I was the one that was like willing to organize it and put forth my own space. I learn a lot from everybody that attends, and it's a lot of fun. So I don't mind doing it now.
Awesome. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, you guys all have MFR businesses, I'm assuming, right? Everybody's got an MFR business. You're busy people. What's like your favorite thing about having an MFR business? And if you want to tell us a little bit about how your business works, that's interesting for people listening to this podcast too.
I'll go ahead. I started off as a physical therapist assistant with learning myofascial release. And then when COVID happened and everything was all jumbled, then I transitioned over to massage and then continued on with John's work. Going back to another clinic, giving somebody else rent, that was just not going to happen anymore. So I just decided to open up my own business, and we took a heck of a risk because it was February of 2021 is when we opened. So right in the middle of the pandemic. But, the drive that I had, and I have a little bit of a history just like everybody else, but when they peeled the lettering off my window, it was as if I had a child that was being birthed, in front of me, and I was able to experience that for the first time. So for me to be able to open my doors and to really welcome everybody into my home, it gives me that much more of a purpose in this life as opposed to the old life of clocking in and out and, just doing that Channel 5 work. So ever since, that's just been my drive 6 days a week, and I rest on Sundays. And yeah, it's just been a heck of a transition. for the positive since I began.
Amazing. Who else?
I think I started my business. I worked as an occupational therapist for a long time, and I did home health and nursing homes and all the things. And I filled out all the paperwork and fought with the insurance companies. And I think as OTs, we're bigger picture therapists. So the MFR fit with what I did as a therapist anyway. And just being able to be present with my clients and give them what they needed, not what an insurance company thought they needed. And really incorporating the whole mind, body, spirit piece into it, as opposed to being relegated as an OT to upper extremity, or, I'm treating the whole person, which is how it should be for everyone. And I mean, there really weren't any downsides to having an MFR practice for me. Owning a business comes with its own stressors, getting referrals and keeping people happy, et cetera, et cetera. But I never saw any of those things as a negative. It was just kind of part of the deal. And it was very natural and comfortable. And I'm happy. I'm like Corey, I'm 6 days a week almost. And I come to work every day and I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I don't care if I'm tired. I don't care if I need to go to the grocery store and have 10 million things. I can come in this place and be happy. And that's at 47 years old. I'm really proud that I have a job that I'm happy to do every single day, all the time.
I love that. Part of my motivation to branch out and open up my business was permission to be creative, and then also to really follow the John Barnes principles. About 10 years ago, myofascial release was, emerging. John's been teaching for 50 years, but in the clinic that I was working at, other practitioners were also offering myofascial release. And it was the tough, like the no pain, no gain myofascial release. So in terms of me having to spend a lot of time in a different setting, just distinguishing the difference between what I'm going to provide versus what other people are providing, it just became more of a motivation to create my space and have that reputation grow, so that when people walk in the door, they already know what to expect. And it just became easier for the patient. And I think it became easier for me as a therapist to deliver the work in its authentic form, and then have fun with it and see the results, flourish that way.
Love it.
I actually started as a massage therapist way back when I got my license over 20 years ago. I always knew I wanted to have my own business. And once that finally happened, I took my first couple courses, and it just was so much more. And I knew that after those courses that I didn't want to do just regular massage anymore. And it took me a long time to transition my business, probably because I didn't have a good business coach at that time. But it has just opened so many doors for me personally. This work has helped me so much. And by being able to be my own business owner, it supported my family. And like Jen said, when you get to do something you love, it just makes everything easy. So, yeah, I've always kind of walked my own path, even when it's hard. And I've made some hard decisions about business spaces that I've left, or people telling me that I couldn't do it. And I'm always welcome to proving people wrong in that way.
I feel like we get that from being in this community of MFR therapists, is the idea of what is possible for us is opened up by what is possible for our patients. It starts with like these ideas of instilling that hope is still there for people that have been told they have the worst diagnosis ever. And then taking that knowledge and applying it to our lives and our businesses, where like, just because it's hard for other people doesn't mean you have to have a hard business, or that you have to grind in order to make it work out, or you have to just people please your way through it. So it's fun to see the MFR that we know doesn't stop at the business door. Like, you can have an MFR business and an MFR business. That makes sense.
Yeah. And on top of that, I love the MFR principle of, if you feel like you're working too hard at it, you're working too hard at it. So having business goals is great, but also, again, that permission to enjoy the process and sometimes take that pressure off of myself makes me enjoy the journey that much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Goals do not have to create pressure. That's for sure.
I think this brings it back to the study group thing. For those of us that are willing to walk this path, and hold that space. We want to do it for other people. We want other people to do this so we can make MFR mainstream. And the only way that's done is by more people doing that. So if we have to lead this way and show other people how to do it, or that it can be done in different ways, because we're all different people and have different personalities and backgrounds, study groups are just so juicy for that.
Yeah. You know what's also cool about this is like it's so easily accessible, maybe not by time, right? But by money. It's a low bar to entry to go to a study group. You've had to have had, what is it? Just MFR 1 only.
MFR 1. That's all there is. It's just MFR 1.
Yeah. So it's like a low bar investment to have keys to this amazing community and support from an amazing community, and hopefully therapists that are willing to, enter at this entry level, see how great it is and continue on because they have support of leaders like you in the community. So I just want to thank you as someone that works with MFR therapists all day to ensure that they are getting the support that they need to not burn out in their businesses, but to see on the skill side of it that there are people that are working tirelessly to ensure that like the skill set is there and that everybody is learning in the purity and transferring that onto their patients because they have access to it as soon as they're done with MFR1, which is really, really great. Okay. What would you say is the hardest thing either in your MFR business and as being a study group leader? What is the hardest thing?
Channel 5.
Tell me more.
So at the end of the year, there's the taxes. When you are successful, it's a smack in the face of how hard you actually work. Mm-hmm. So you have to try to find different pleasures out of life, as opposed to, oh, I really want that boat or I really want to go on that vacation. You have to kind of look at how wonderful is it that I can sit outside on a patio on a Tuesday afternoon and just look at nature, so your time becomes more valuable at that aspect. So that aspect of Channel 5, and then when we get clients that are still so stuck into that healthcare environment, and West Michigan we have the Medical Mile in Grand Rapids and Pfizer, which is the big pharmaceutical, and so we have a lot of medical aspects in our area, and people are still really stuck in that mindset. But after just maybe one treatment or even one consult, everything completely changes for them. So, there is a flip side to that negative. And it's quite easy, after a few years of study, to try to mold Channel 5 back into Channel 3 so they can look at how wonderful life truly is.
Yeah. So are you saying that when you're making more money, you're paying more taxes? That's your biggest pain in your ass for your business?
That's pretty much it.
You can plan for that, right?
Yeah, you can plan for that. But it's just, I came from a background of distribution and factory work and military.
Yeah.
So when you go from depending on somebody else to give you a paycheck versus you are providing your own, it throws in a whole different mentality. And, you have a much greater awareness of what's happening at a much greater scale.
Yeah. It's all in your control instead of someone sending you that paycheck, right? And
Sure.
and you have all the responsibility that comes with that all the way down.
Absolutely. All from the top, all the way down.
Yeah. Awesome. Who else wants to share the hardest thing about being a business owner, being a study group leader?
I think one of my biggest challenges is just knowing how many people are out there suffering, the things you hear from people and that feeling of responsibility, which of course we know we can't save everyone logically, but we do this work for a reason because we love people and we care about people and we want to see people make changes for themselves. And having to put down that responsibility, you meet someone and you just know you can help them, but you can't take any more people. And you have to just kind of say, okay, I've got to hand this back to you because you've got to do your own work. And there's a lot of people out there suffering and it can become very overwhelming sometimes. And I think something I'm constantly working on for myself, as a business owner and as a therapist is, I have to have limits and I also have to accept that people are going to have to go somewhere else to find help because I can't help everyone all the time. But it does it hurts sometimes, and it can be very energetically and emotionally draining to hear these terrible things that people have been through and see them suffering, even though it gets better. It's kind of hard sometimes in the beginning.
Yes. I think that's another reason why study groups or like being in coaching or just being involved with other MFR therapists is to be able to have frank discussions about the difficulty of dealing with people who are in chronic and unexplained pain. I mean, it's a lot and it's a privilege to be able to bear witness to these people that are having these difficult situations and then also, overcoming it and, going through the whole process. But I think I just want to acknowledge like the heavy lift that therapists in our community do in choosing this work and being involved with being exposed to hearing all of the traumas that people are experiencing. It's a lot. And I hope that people listening to this really do understand that and they don't downplay it and that they're themselves like paying for treatment, getting treated, being in community with other therapists and talking about it instead of pretending like we'll just carry it all around. It's fine, our own shit. So yeah.
First, you had mentioned about the hardest thing in the MFR business. And I think one of the hardest things is to probably get people to come back once they've had a healing crisis. Mm-hmm. To explain to them that's part of the process. And I think a lot of times it scares people away. And then for the hardest thing about the study group, I actually have some people who are therapists who've actually never had a full session themselves, trying to explain to them how important that is. And that's going to make them become the best therapist is actually receiving treatments.
Yeah. What blows my mind too is people that want to do MFR only, but they're not willing to get treated. That always blows my mind. Or they're not willing to pay for treatment, but they want people to pay them to give them a treatment. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting way to think. And it's something that I'm working very diligently on promoting within our community is paying for treatment. It's great to trade, but what would happen if you actually took the time and the money and you paid for your own treatment and there were no strings attached to you having to treat anyone else or give anyone anything and you were just able to receive the treatment that you paid for and investing in our own care at that level and making sure that our businesses are set up in a way to provide us with enough financial stability that we can afford to pay for the services that we offered other people to pay us for.
And John tells us, right, that we can only take people as far as we're willing to go ourselves. And a lot of people, I think, kind of piggybacking on what she said, people don't even know what that means until, I certainly didn't, I was very fortunate. I landed in a place, I had Tara Carrington as my mentor and, I got to work a lot with her. And when she started treating me, I thought, great, I have one of the best in the business. I'm going to learn all these great things. And boy, when we started peeling back that onion on me, I was like, oh, I see now. And it really took me a few years to settle into that work. But every penny I spent was worth it because it just helped me have that insight into what we're doing. And also that you have to take care of yourself because the better you become at this work, it almost feels like it gets heavier, but you're also learning the tools to not allow it to become too heavy. So that's that benefit of that treatment. Spend the money, what you can't take it with you.
Yeah. Well, and also when you spend money to get treatment, you yourself have to get over your own objections to spending your time and money, which are the same objections that your clients have to coming in for treatment and paying for it. And if you can't see your own objections or work your way through them, you'll never be able to help your client walk through those as well. Same with like this idea of them being upset about a healing crisis or not coming back, like what Maria said. Mm-hmm. I would just wonder for therapists that have never had a healing crisis or they try to avoid one at all costs by like really controlling the amount of therapy that they get. Y'all know who those people are. And how does that impact your ability to talk to your clients about a healing crisis and about what's possible for them when you're yourself not willing? And I'm not saying Maria's not willing to go through it, but if you're willing to go all the way there, you're willing to pay for it, you're willing to go through the suffering to get to the other side, how much more willing would your patients be? Because you can talk them through it. You literally have lived through that multiple times and you can share it with your patients, which is so important.
Well, and then that also sets you almost at a higher, and I don't mean to pull hierarchy, but it sets your ability to help people through crises much higher in your area because you've gone through so much yourself.
Yeah.
So after they've gone through something traumatic as a healing crisis and you're able to help them through that, then not only is word of mouth going to be able to spread, but they're going to feel that they're able to express their authentic self more freely. And that itself, spreads around as well.
Yeah. And you're not going to be freaked out as the therapist because you know what's going to happen next. They get through it. We all know the therapists that post on MFR Insight, like right after they've treated their first patient and the patient texts them and they're like, I feel like shit. And they're like, what do I do? like trying to get all this advice because they've never experienced it or they're freaked out, So
Yeah.
Yes, the good old healing crisis. God love her.
That's a podcast in itself.
Yes.
Well, like you say, Heather, all the time about just talking to people about it, like their first appointment, you have to tell them this is going to happen to you at some point during the course of your treatment. And you know what it means? It means we are on the right track.
Yeah. And normalizing, I think that it can take a lot of treatment to get to where you want to go. And MFR is for life. It's not a quick fix, right? It's for life. And I think when people put it in perspective like that, like this is something I'm choosing to do for my health and the care of my body, the care and keeping of my body for my lifetime. I'm not trying to get off the schedule. You can't get me off of it.
Yeah. One thing I did want to share about something I struggle with in my business is that this work is my business. So there's that, I'm thankful for it. And I definitely appreciate the financial gain for offering what I do to help people. And I also just dream about this time in my life where I'm financially independently wealthy and I can literally connect and provide treatment for those people who cannot afford it, whether it's, going to a country that's underprivileged or really looking into my community and allowing it to be, a healthcare service that's free for all type of thing. And that's where business, healthcare, that fine line for me, there's always that bigger picture of being able to go beyond the financial gain.
Yeah. Well, and I think normalizing that financial gain is actually super healthy for our industry.
Yeah.
And being high income earners actually stabilizes the MFR industry as a whole. And it gives us as therapists more control over the modality. It also gives us the ability later on to give things away for free. I know as like my coaching practice has increased. And even when I was in business as an MFR therapist, the more money I made, the more I could do for free.
Yeah. I knew you'd have the best answer.
And the thing is like, I could do it from this pure, I not only want to do this, but I can afford to do it. And I think we all want to do that from the very beginning because we think we should, and it just feels better.
Yeah.
And if we can really normalize making money and making large amounts of money and make that just definitely an okay thing to do, because who better than to have a bunch of very financially successful, rich ass MFR therapists out in the world?
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to make the world worse?
Yeah.
Just tell me one scenario where that's worse. I can't think of one. But in a world where we under-earn and we overwork and we burn out, we take the industry with us. And I want the industry to go this way. I want us to never under-earn and never burn out and work 20 hours or less per week so that we can have a really rich life outside of MFR. Because I think for a lot of us, MFR, we love it so much and we feel so good in the treatment room that a lot of us don't have lives outside of the treatment room. And then we're really missing out on everything else that's available to us too, using our senses and our perspective and our channel 3 and like thriving outside of our business too. It's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was my soapbox. What is a typical day for you or a week? Like, what is a fully booked week for you, if you're willing to share, and where are you at in your business? I think it's fun to kind of see the variety of what fully booked is for different people. Maybe how many days a week you work and what is fully booked.
A fully booked week for me, and this has been consistent, I'm looking at 5 days a week, 5 treatments a day, and they could range from 60 minutes to 2 hours. I haven't set that boundary of myself yet. And then Saturdays, I limit myself to 3 treatments. with an occasional emergency at the end of Saturday to give me a fourth treatment at the end.
Okay. So you're seeing like 40 hours a week?
Typically, I'm here, I would say about 50 hours a week. And again, it's been quite consistent. So we don't really get a lull. And in fact, we're coming into the busy season because of we have a tulip festival coming. So we're now fully booking up, and then we're having to refer people elsewhere.
And are you a single practitioner, or do you have therapists that work under you?
Right now we have 3 rooms, and it's myself and another therapist that's working beside me. She's my business partner. And then May 1st, we're adding one more therapist who's taken MFR 1. And in fact, that's how she found me, was that she came for a treatment, and then I offered her a position. So she'll be repeating in a couple of weeks in Kalamazoo. But regardless, that's a full week. And even Samantha is quite full as well. So she's pretty much capped out.
Okay. So are you all individually doing 50 hours, or that's 50 hours spread throughout?
Oh, no, I'm the workaholic. So I'm doing between 50 and 60 hours. And Samantha is probably close to 30 hours. And then she has her own venture on the side. And then Jana, the other therapist, she hasn't began yet. So she's going to be down to I think she's going to start about 4 days a week.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's making me a little sweaty. Okay. Who else wants to share?
I was going to say, Corey, thank you for admitting it first, because I was like, oh God, I don't want to say this in front of Heather. Because I think I'm about the same. I'm 50 to 60. I do always Monday through Friday. I've been throwing in some Saturdays. I teach MFR yoga as well that Grace trained me in. I don't do that. I do that like once a month, but I've been hiring for 3 years. But I think the problem kind of we talked about earlier is, there's a lot of people in the area who've taken 1 or 2 classes, but they want to mix it with other things, or, they're not willing to kind of fully devote themselves to just this work. Because I offer mentorship and those types of things. And I haven't found anyone who was reliable, who was willing to. I want someone who loves it the way I love it. I'm fortunate in my Bradenton office.
You want them to be invested.
Yeah. I mean, my therapist in Bradenton, she started with me in Tampa, but she lives an hour away. So we just opened an office where she was, and now she has boundaries. She's really good. So I am hiring in Tampa, Florida, if anyone's interested. But yeah, it's a lot of work, and I've been trying to back off. Like, I didn't take any new clients January to March. I opened my books in April. I had 20 new clients book like instantly. So I had to close my books again. So that's 50 to 60 hours with no new clients, which is great, but I need help.
Okay. Maria.
So I would say I would max out at 20. 18 is fully booked for me. I was working 7 days a week, but now I'm taking Thursdays off. I just do like 2 appointments on Saturdays and Sundays, but otherwise I try to have most of them on Monday through Friday, except for Thursday.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So I've been in the massage therapy industry for almost 22 years now. I remember my first week of massage therapy school, they tell us the average lifespan of a therapist is 5 years. So my alarms went off and I was like, okay, that's not going to be me. I'm going to do everything they tell us not to do, which is like, work 100 hours on a cruise ship your first few years to make some extra cash. So I've had a very sustainable cadence, I feel, throughout my whole career. And then it got extra sustainable and extra enjoyable when I learned about myofascial release more exclusively about 14 years ago. So my fully booked looks about 20 to 25 hours a week, hands-on work. And then I'm also super passionate about my own self-care, my own self-treatment, and then also providing self-treatment options for my clients. So when I was developing my online program, that went into like workaholic mode, because editing and, all the things that happen behind the scenes, that it turned into writing a book. It turned into this really big production. So I went off the charts with my sustainable cadence for a couple of years to create this product, which now is a source of passive income and a true source of joy at the end of one of my treatments, where I can tell my client, go to day 7, because that's going to be full of things that will help you, or any day that you choose. It's just right there for them. But yeah, 20 to 25 hours a week hands-on is my happy place. And then extracurricular events are always fun if they're MFR inspired.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kristen.
My fully booked number is 14 a week.
Yeah.
It's what works for me, and it gives me plenty of time to be with my family and do fun things. I like to travel. I take time off about every other month, and it's also given me a lot of income.
Yeah. You're going to have a 6-figure business.
I am. Yeah.
I just want to point that out because you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars working under 20 hours, just as an option available to everybody who's listening and who's here. I just get to do what you want. I'm not going to make anyone change.
If you've ever gone through a period of extreme burnout, you really learn how to set your boundaries and then reignite your passion about why it is you're doing what you're doing. I mean, I have a little bit of flexibility. And sometimes I'll take a couple more, but also allows me to invest in a couple other little passion projects like sound therapy. So it gives me the opportunity to do that too. And incorporate it in with myofascial release every now and then.
Yeah. I like to hear that people have like MFR adjacent things they're doing, like the sound therapy, Jen with MFR yoga, and then the self-care program. That's really cool. I think that's really fun. And it's fun to see how you guys can set yourselves up to have other things going on. That's really cool. Really good.
Yeah.
All right. What do you believe is going to keep you in MFR business?
I think that it is the best therapy, best hands-on therapy available. It's so gentle. And when you let yourself just dive into it, you can do and achieve amazing results. I mean, for yourself, for your clients, and that's just going to permeate your whole life. So having that passion for it, again, bringing it back to study group, having that support to keep that going is really important.
I think this just gives you an opportunity to let people authentically feel that their essence has a body and that they're connected. And to have that role is something very sacred and very blessed. So that's the difference of Channel 5 and Channel 3. I mean, this truly is how we're supposed to be. And there's nothing that's going to keep me from doing MFR. In essence, there really hasn't been anything that has kept us from doing MFR from the beginning. We've just finally, John has given us the ability to organize this shoveled up bit of puzzle and align it so we can finally say, yes, this is what we're doing and this is who we are.
Love it. Who else? What's going to keep you in MFR, keep you in business, keep you as a study group leader?
For me, it's as long as I am feeling the results of receiving myofascial release, I will be seeking the treatments. And as long as I'm getting the results with my clients and I'm getting these messages like this training, this therapy is slowly giving me my life back, that's the gold, as I treat people and they're seeing the light of more activities in their lives, more joy, more freedom in their lives, people who cancel their surgeries because they see that this is helping them and this can be a lifelong support system for them to be able to continue to do what they love to do. That will be as long as I keep practicing, for sure.
And I think for me, giving people hope again, that is like seeing that light back in their eyes again. When the doctor told them, you should just be happy you're not in a wheelchair and this is the best you're going to get. Mm-hmm. And then to see, like, just even after one session, they believe in themselves again and they believe in the work and they're really excited. And I know for me, the more myofascial sessions I receive, the better I can give to others as well. So I wouldn't be able to give as much as I do if I weren't receiving as much as I am.
Nice.
Yeah. As I'm listening to everyone else talk, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. But it feels like a really hard question for me to answer because the longer I've done this for 10 years and I've been an OT for 22, and I feel like my life before that was almost like a dream or, well, a nightmare, really, if you've ever worked in traditional healthcare. But it's almost like none of that ever mattered. This just feels right. It looks right. As the world changes and AI and all this other garbage shows up, kind of like Corey said, like you can't take away that human connection because that's how we're designed to be. And no matter what comes about, there's always going to be people who seek that authenticity and that truth. So there's not even a question that it's just, this is the way things should be. And it feels right. And it feels good. And I'll keep working until I either fall down or people stop coming. And I don't see either of those happening. So I'll carry on, but it just, from day one, it was such a natural thing for me to walk into without question, without doubt, without any kind of worry that it wasn't the right thing, that I feel like it's going to keep moving in that direction.
Nice. I love to hear this because, I don't want anyone to ever burn out doing this work and to keep going. So I appreciate that people can hop over to a study group, and maybe I don't know if you guys talk about these things in study group, but if someone is sharing, hey, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed or burned out, if you guys can give them resources, or if you guys just talk about it, or what happens in those situations, or if you are noticing that is happening for some people, how do you guys deal with that?
We just have conversations and try to get to the root of what the problem is. It makes me think of a couple months ago, somebody was just really struggling with some choices he had to make. So we just talked about it. And then he ended up calling me the next day too, to talk a little more. And, I reminded him of, he's the previous coaching person. So I reminded him of the things he should do to figure this problem out, to make the best decision for what he needed. And at the same time, I've had a couple people start businesses recently, and to see them flourish. And then also, not that I give a lot of business advice, but give them the resources to really help them make good decisions from the beginning for their businesses. Mm-hmm. I love that part about study group just as much as the group treatment aspect.
Yeah. I love a good group unwinding personally.
I know, me too.
No talking required. Yeah.
I don't understand why more people don't make it a point to come to study groups.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have amazing experiences in some group treatment with the mix of people that are there. It's so much fun.
I wonder if it's just a matter of people just don't know that it's available. It's kind of things that I've observed from doing what I do now is I can send postcards way in advance. I can send emails. I can post on social media. I can text people, and people will know something's going on, but whether or not they feel inspired to know and put it on their calendar and put it on their calendar and commit to it are totally different things.
Yeah.
It's got to be inspired prioritization or something. And I don't think you can tell people enough or remind people enough of what's available for them.
We've had quite an attendance increase after the seminars had come locally.
Great. Good.
There was a lot of therapists that I wasn't even aware of that were practicing myofascial release, probably within 150 miles. And shortly after, I think it was fascial pelvis in East Lansing, I believe it was all of a sudden everybody started to flock in, and even in my own hometown, I was just shocked. So I think once the word gets out, maybe the postcards from Melbourne are getting out with, advertising the classes. But then again, there's also larger cities that they don't have any study group leaders that make it difficult as well. So I think the more the seminars actually travel around the country, the more people are starting to come out and being comfortable with presenting themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think another obstacle for people prioritizing study groups is that they forget the feeling. This circles back to the whole Channel 5 getting in the way of everything that brings us joy sometimes.
Busyness.
Yeah, the busyness.
Yeah.
But I think once people do arrive, it's almost the same as when people book treatments, they kind of say, why didn't I do this sooner? And I think that's exactly the mindset of people who do finally arrive to a study group. They remember how amazing it is and how much better they can feel. So I think it's just a matter of remembering and then committing as well.
Yeah, very important.
I agree with Corey on that. When we're fortunate in Florida that we get a lot of courses here. We usually have a couple per year, and all the instructors are kind enough to put study group sign up lists out at the seminars. So that really helps too. a lot of people, you never hear from them or you'll see them once. I think that's the only challenge we have is, I have my core group of kind of hardcore people who always come and always, they understand the benefits and they like getting the treatment. But there's a lot of people, and I think those are the people who are using it as a tool in the toolbox. They kind of come, and I think a lot of them are expecting more of a seminar type experience, which is obviously not the point of the study group. But, they're kind of like, oh yeah, that was good. And then they just kind of go on their way. And it's good to kind of know who's out there and who's practicing, and you get to know, we literally have new people every study group, that who didn't come before or whatever. So it's a great opportunity, but people have to take the time and they have to, I think like Magdalena said, people forget that feeling and, you can't always get to a seminar, but here I am. Come on over to the study group, you get a little mini blast of MFR, and it's a nice reminder of what you're doing in your practice and the people who have started businesses here, who maybe are struggling a little bit, that kind of being in the presence of those of us who have done it a long time and getting that feeling of grounding and not forcing and not fixing. And, I go very much into every study group in the beginning about we're not competing against one another. We're all in this together. And just kind of the principles, but people have to want it. And I think that's the difference is some people just kind of see it as, oh, I can go. And then, if I don't get what I want, then I'm not coming back.
Just like clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. I wonder too, I saw this on MFR Insight. Someone posted that they got an award for being the best kept secret. And I think this is like a problem in our community. Congratulations for that therapist for getting the award, but also if people don't know we're here and we continue to be a secret, we continue to not have the ability for people to find us. So I think encouraging everyone, even, as leaders of study groups, get on the directory, have a website, tell people you're there, shout it from the rooftop, tell us that you're there. There's so many people you can't find, because they don't have a website or they're just not searchable, you're not findable.
That's a great idea I don't have a study group landing page. I need one of those.
Yeah, study group landing pages. I wonder if Mark Barnes would be open to putting a study group page on the directory. If you knew the dates for the whole year, if they could be updated once a year with instructions or something.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. We should troubleshoot some of these things. How can we make people find us a little easier? So good.
I unfortunately give people guilt trips when it comes to being on MFR Insight, because they'll contact me. I'll put a RSVP because we've gotten so big to where we might have to go to a conference.
Yeah.
So when they show up or they call past the RSVP, I'll just say, yeah, we posted on Insight once as per allowed. I try to encourage them to get on Insight and just to kind of keep their eyes peeled for that.
Yeah. And maybe we need to start sending out email lists, emailing people and reminding them. Like I said, you just literally cannot tell people enough because people are busy and they're not paying attention and posts get buried on MFR Insight. Facebook is kind of the worst place to make an announcement in one time because you don't know who it's going to show up for. And if you don't check it every day, you're going to miss it because there's so many posts.
Yeah. I have an email list that I send out. I have a set email list just for study group, possibles.
Yeah.
And I send it about, the month ahead of time. And then I'll send it out kind of 2 weeks before, since we can only post once on Insight. I'll send out the email reminder. And then I have a few that I just kind of know, and I'll text them and go, hey, I didn't see the RSVP. They're like, oh yeah, I'm totally coming. So I also have my stragglers that I know I have to kind of, as long as I scoot them along, they come. But the email list is helpful. And, like I said, if you have a seminar coming up in your area, if you don't attend for some reason, you can always ask them to put a list up. And Donna's been pretty good about announcing study groups. I know when I was in Nashville last year, she announced, study groups and that kind of thing in the area. And that was, I think, really helpful to a lot of people who were like, oh, we didn't even realize that someone was there. So I think that's been important too.
Yeah. I'll make sure for this episode in the show notes, we put, if you guys are okay with it, put your email contact in the notes, and then also the link to find the study group registry on the seminars page. So then people can find a study group in their area. So for anyone listening, pull over in your car right now And check the show notes so you can find somebody near you. Don't do it on your phone while you're driving. Let's be safe. But I think that that's important. And also just putting this episode out there so people know, oh yeah, like there's this other really valuable resource available for me to help me. There's so many resources available for us for help. And I think the more we normalize being in community and asking for help and just getting more of what we already like and what will make us better therapists and make us feel better is normal. It's okay to do. And it doesn't make you weird to want to go to a study group. It just makes you better, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining me today. This has been really fun to meet all of you. If you want to pass along to your study groups, I'm going to be hosting a free week-long coachathon in July. And I'm telling people now, we're recording this episode in April. I don't know when it's going to air, but the week of July 22nd, I'm going to have a 5-day coachathon. We'll be coaching on everything related to having an MFR business during that week. It's a great opportunity to meet with other therapists, and it will be held on Zoom. So,
Cool.
All right. Any questions for me or anything else you guys want to add before we wrap up?
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm looking forward to your coachathon.
Thanks. Me too. I'm excited for it. It's fun to prep for those things. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week on another episode of the MFR Coaches Podcast. Bye for now. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a minute and rate and review the podcast. I appreciate it. For more information, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The MFR Coach. And check out my website, www.themfrcoach.com, for more information. If you are currently not working 20 hours or less and making 6 figures in your MFR business, I want to help you change that. Make sure you tune into the show and get on my email list so you never miss out on important trainings and information. To be the first to find out when we are enrolling next for my 12-month Business Foundations coaching program, get on that email list at www.themfrcoach.com/join. Inside this program, you'll learn how to raise your rate, overcome objections, and sell MFR. You'll become the MFR therapist that never under-earns and never burns out. It's up to us to make MFR mainstream, and it starts with you and your successful MFR practice. See you next week.